And this morning, though, with the deteriorating situation in Afghanistan. We are now 48 hours away from the deadline set by President Biden to have all U.S. troops leave that country. But our first guest says setting that deadline, that was part of the problem. Congressman Jake Ellzey is a retired U.S. Navy commander who served in Iraq and Afghanistan and was elected this summer to represent the state's 6th congressional district, parts of Arlington and Alice and Navarro counties in North Texas. Congressman Ellzey, thank you for the time. Congratulations on your election. We haven't spoken to you since you got to Congress, but let's talk about what has become very clear in the past couple of weeks. No one really seems to know how we should have gotten out of Afghanistan in these final few hours that we're in here. How would you have led this withdrawal any differently?
First of all, you have to understand that the Taliban are not a trustworthy group. They are not the government in charge. We should never recognize them, nor should we ever trust them. Unfortunately, that is borne out in what you have seen now, and I think we're up to 3 explosions at the airport in Kabul. So there are a number of different things tactically that I or anybody else in charge, frankly, would have done differently. So I would say that using an airport like Hamid Karzai International in the middle of, or at the north part of Kabul, yet surrounded by neighborhoods from a force protection and evacuation standpoint wasn't the choice that I would have used. We should have maintained Bagram 30 miles to the north, which has 2 runways. I flew out of there as a contractor in 2013 and 2014. It's much more easily defended, and it has heavy lift capability, long runways, and an ability to launch and land aircraft simultaneously.
You mentioned the Taliban a moment ago, too. I want to ask you about that because the last administration, the Trump administration, actually cut the deal on withdrawal with the Taliban, not with the Afghan government. And people now are saying, well, if they cut it with the Afghan government, it might have lended some credibility to that kind of fledgling government there. Was it a mistake to deal with the Taliban to start with that led to this entire withdrawal?
That's a good question. And I took office 3 weeks ago, and I wasn't in on any of the particulars, any of the negotiations, who they negotiated with, the government or the Taliban. So I really can't answer that.
Congressman, over the last 20 years, when we zoom out and look at this, was the U.S. war in Afghanistan ever winnable?
It depends on what your strategic aims are, Jason. That is another one for the history books and the political scientists to figure out. I went there. I was there on the USS Enterprise when the second plane hit. And then I deployed in 2009 and 10 as a squadron commanding officer, flying Super Hornets, supporting troops on the ground. And we saved thousands of lives. We educated young women in a place that had never had that before because of the Taliban. What's happened in this case is we have a president who thought it was a good idea at some point to signify our pullout by using the date of September 11th, 20 years after the fact. Nobody in their right mind would use that date except for him. And he got abruptly corrected. And so then he moved it up to August 31st. If you've ever been in uniform and ever been on a mission accomplishment date is an arbitrary thing that is not met with reality in combat. So your mission is complete only when the mission is complete and not a minute before.
At the end of the day, it sounds like one of the biggest mistakes you think the Biden administration made is by setting a specific date for withdrawal as opposed to just slowly pulling everyone out. Is that right?
Without question. And our Democrat colleagues agree. That's if you've heard some of the things that I've heard from our Democrat colleagues, they sound just like us because we're all Americans, and this is an embarrassment. And this has a long-term lasting negative effects to our allies, to our adversaries. And yes, an August 31st date that was arbitrary, set by the president himself. And many in his administration are quick to say, we didn't tell him that. And yes, we knew this was going to happen if he did this. So this is, the president has said, I'm in charge and the buck stops here, followed quickly by blaming other people.
Congressman Ellzey, we appreciate the time. Congratulations again on your election.
Thank you very much, Jason.